You have asked me many times to do an analysis of the film Something. Since the film has an open ending and for 40 years there have been disputes over which of the two surviving heroes has assimilated something, Childs or R.J. MacReady, this issue is still one of the most discussed. And I think it's time to put an end to it. Director John Carpenter in his interviews many times evaded the answer and always said everything you need to know, he showed in the film. And the way he did it deserves respect. I'll tell you right away that it took me a lot of time to prepare and even had to read the script, which is actually not much different from the movie, but still some points are described in more detail. That's what helped me find all the answers. Yes, guys, Childs is something, and I'll prove it to you. Plus, I will also try to sort out small details, even at what point and who stole the keys to the locker with blood samples. And anyway, what is this something? How did it get on the ship? Where did it come from? And much more. So sit back, I'll start with the most asked question. When did Childs become something? Let's start with hints, and in the end we will consider 100% evidence. So, the first one will be the theory of Rob, a very respected expert and video blogger. He said that when we are shown something on the screen, it is always accompanied by the same melody. At the beginning of the film, the dog, and at the end it confirms and Chael. These are the moments. I decided to check, and this is not always the case. In some cases a different melody is playing. And at the same time, we already know after watching the movie which of the characters is assimilated. So I will not be guided by this theory. The most important clue and the answer was always on the surface. Have you ever wondered why we were shown this moment? What was the point of these shots? What did the director think when he decided to show us this scene? In fact, this is the answer, or rather the jackets that hang on hangers. Before that, we remember the scene when MacReady gives instructions to Chaz. If Dr. Blair returns without them, then he should burn him. We're going out to check on Blair. If he tries to come back, we won't have him. Burn it. Look at how the jackets hang. Later in the frame we see that one is missing, and some of the location on the hanger has changed. Plus, pay attention to the boot that was standing in this frame, and literally 10 minutes later it is lying. Now I'll explain what I'm getting at. Before that, the film shows us several times that during assimilation something tears clothes. It is not biological material and has no value for an alien organism. In the beginning there were long johns, and later I wanted to put something on MacReady, and to be honest, he did it well. Is this detail important? Without a doubt, yes, since these breadcrumbs of the director were the answer to the main question. Prior to this scene of dialogue with MacReady, Chal was 100% uninfected. He successfully passed a blood test. But already in the frame where he leaves the base, everything is completely different. But what really happened? I think that in that short period of time, Dr. Blair infected Chals. For some reason, he could not burn the doctor. Perhaps he could talk him or something else. But one thing is clear, in the process of assimilation or struggle, some jackets fell to the floor. And after the process of absorbing Childs, his jacket was damaged. He took it off and put on the one that is most similar to his, just what is missing in this frame. The rest he hung up in place, but forgot about the boot, so it lies horizontally on the floor. The second clue is at the end of the film, when the two of them met, we see that MacReady offers Childs a drink from one bottle. This is a very subtle detail. And now I will explain to you the course of RJ. In the film, the doctor says that it will be better if everyone cooks for himself and keeps a distance so as not to get infected randomly. The scenario describes this situation better. Namely, the attitude of Chayals to his dishes. He was somewhat torn with anger because others ignored this advice and took his glass and other appliances. Therefore, MacReady understood that if Chayals was not something, then he would never agree to drink with him from the same bottle. And it was at that moment that he understood everything and realized that he had lost. But instead of getting angry, he smiles, although at the beginning of the film we were shown his attitude to losing. If you look at everything happening from a different angle, with a constant question in your head, what the director wanted to tell us, then every scene is important. And even this moment of playing chess. Many people think, including me, that this is an analogy of the whole movie. Playing chess is something with MacReady. Everyone made their own move, and at the end, when RJ thinks he has won, then in fact everything is far from the case. Just like he thought with the slot machine. You're starting to drain, aren't you?
The king takes the rook. My move is the rook takes the knight. Checkmate for you.
He clearly doesn't like to lose. I hope I helped you figure out the first question. I also wanted to talk about the rumors about a miracle videotape with cut scenes and another ending of the film. I thought it was all a myth, but I was wrong. At the end of the video I will show everything that was not included in the final film, and there are a lot of interesting things there. But at the moment I want to consider the second question: at what time and who stole the keys to the locker where the blood was stored? This moment is specified in detail in the script, and I tried to find this scene in the film, and to my surprise it was shown. I just never paid attention to it. Windows dropped them. See everything in order. Do you have the keys? Take it from Harry. I want to take something from here. But Windows took them from Harry and goes back. You can see that they are in his hand. There was even an emphasis on this. But from what he saw, he panicked and dropped them. In the movie, you can barely hear that sound of a bunch of keys falling. If you have never noticed this before, then like it. And when everyone started discussing who and when could take the keys and spoil the samples with blood, Windows remembered that he was the last one who took them and was afraid that Harry might remember it, and of course everyone would blame him. So he panicked. Great. Now I understand the words of director John Carpenter, who always said that the answers are in the film, and he was annoyed by all these questions. Palmer picked up the keys. He was assimilated by something almost from the very beginning of the film. And when it happened, we were also shown in the film. This is the moment. Something came out in 1982 and is an adaptation of John Campbell's science fiction novel called Who Goes? There is little interesting in this story about the history of an alien organism. It is indicated that it was trying to repair the ship and fly away. It was not part of its plans to stay on Earth. But when he ran out of resources, he was forced to leave the ship, and in vain, as he fell and froze for 100,000 years, until a Norwegian expedition dug him up. They wanted to fix this missing gap in history in the prequel of the 2011 year. Ronald Moore was the first screenwriter. Unfortunately, I was able to find only a small part of the source code, but even in it there are a lot of interesting things. In the first scenario, there were many stories about something, and it began with a race of aliens called collectors. They roamed the expanses of space and searched for an organic particle of God, a unique organism. There were a lot of samples from different planets in the warehouse, and there was something in one of the flasks. It was able to get out and kill the alien team, but during the battle a fire broke out and the ship crashed on the nearest planet, and it was Earth. Something assimilated the pilot and tried to take off again. After the failure, it left the ship in the accepted form of a collector pilot and froze in the ice of Antarctica. Therefore, when the Norwegians found him, he was no longer in his form. The most interesting thing is that these scenes were even filmed, but due to the fact that the studio did not like animatronics and it was decided to overlay computer graphics on top, plus the studio felt that the picture was getting delayed, Ronald Moore had to leave the project. Instead, they took a new screenwriter, Eric Heiserer. He decided to cut it all out of the film, even though these scenes had already been filmed. For which I want to say a big thank you to him. Therefore, we were never shown the original shape of something, but the pilots can be considered very well. If we refer to Ronald, then he wanted to show something in the flask as a kind of liquid mushroom, but it cannot be considered a canon, since his ideas were not implemented. In general, one thing is clear, that the prequel film of the 2011 year could be completely different, and so we have what we have. Now I want to go back to that mysterious videotape with all the scenes that were filmed, but were not included in the final film. Ask for the video quality and format and my translation. I found what I have. The first scene of dissecting something by Dr. Blair. What is this cellular structure? You see, that's the whole point. No, I don't understand you, Blair. I'm not sure if it's any kind of cellular structure at all. At least, as we understand it. When this something attacks dogs, it tries to form its own cells. This is an imitation. We got to him before he could finish the process. If it had finished this, we would hardly have been able to distinguish it from a dog. Are you saying that thing in the ice was trying to become our dogs? Yes. If it had succeeded, there would have been 3 dogs here instead of what you see now. It looks like it can mimic any form of life. So what's our problem? That this thing hasn't died yet. There is still some live activity. What does she want? Form up, then come for us? I don't know. The scene is interesting because Doc at the beginning of the film made it clear to everyone that everyone can be something, not just dogs, and no one will be able to distinguish him from a person. There was a similar dialogue in the film, but it was much shorter and less informative. The second scene is one of the most interesting. Now you will understand everything. News found this yesterday. It is torn, as are the clothes on the Norwegian that we brought. The size is large. What size are you, Clark? And what? I also wear this size. What size do you wear, childs? So act. Most of us have this size of clothes. At this point, one thing becomes clear that the clothes are Norris's. He says himself that he also has this size. One of the blood tests is that Childs and Clark were not assimilated, and Palmer was smaller in build, then those abandoned underpants in the movie belonged to Norris. From this we can understand at what time he became something. Then there is nothing so important in these scenes that are not included in the film. They showed a dead Norwegian, it doesn't give us any clues. But the ending of the film is completely different. Morning shows us, smoke is visible on the horizon. This is all that remains of the polar station. But a dog is running through the snow, just like at the beginning of the movie. She looks around to see if there is a problem and continues on her way, hinting that this dog is something. The loan of the tea itself does not show, so here we can only guess what happened. I think they're frozen. Something shouldn't have killed MacReady, he doesn't need it. It's much better for him to freeze and wait for the next time they find him again. If he is on his own and there is a torn body next to him, then doubts may appear, and so there is more chance of success. We remember that the creature is actually very smart. Another very interesting moment is when in the film the Norwegian started shooting at dogs. He talked a lot, but no one knew the language and did not understand his words, and very much in vain. I also translated this scene, and it is very interesting. Get the hell away from this thing. It's not a dog. It's something. It's an imitation of a dog. It's unreal. Get out, you idiots. It is a pity that they did not understand his words, and even acted so stupidly. Henry could have shot him in the leg, but not killed the Norwegian. But then there wouldn't be a movie.